I'd like to welcome back John Nagy. Welcome back, John.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be back.
Great. Thanks for joining me. John Nagy is a director at Reed Hurst Nagy, Chartered Professional Accountants, one of the larger accounting firms in the Lower Mainland. Now, John, as we both know, applications for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, CEWS for short, went live today. And we've got a bunch of questions here, 6 in fact, that kind of were the top questions in terms of businesses not really too sure about the answers. And I thought I might present them to you one at a time and have get your feedback.
Absolutely. I'd love to
Well, the first one, John, is can employer wages be included in the subsidy?
The short answer is yes, but there is a little qualifier in that if you as an employer who owned the business was only taking $500 a week in wages in January, February, or March, you can't suddenly go up to $2,000 a week to top up the 75% from the government. So it'll be based on what you were taking out in January, February, and March on regular wages.
Okay, sounds good. Number 2, can employers pay staff retroactively using the wage subsidy or use it for those who have already claimed the Canada Emergency Response Benefit?
Yes, you can certainly retroactively pay employees and then use that calculation to calculate your wage subsidy. So if you had employees that were laid off and subsequently you've rehired them, or if you have employees that you weren't paying for a period of time, you can hire them back, you can retroactively pay them. You can't just book it, you have to actually pay them and then use that for the 75% calculation.
Okay, sounds good. And this was an interesting one here too, one I'm interested in. Can employers hire new employees after March 15th and include their wages?
Again, it's a short answer, and the answer is yes, but it will be based strictly on their wages. And so there is a small quirk in the system that if you have employees that have taken a cut in pay, their subsidy would potentially be based on what they were earning before March 15th. And so there's a possibility that the employer might actually get 100% of that employee's salary as a subsidy. That won't be available for new employees. You'll only get the 75%.
Okay. And number 4 here, which employees can be included in the rebate of an employer's payroll taxes?
So the rebate of employers' payroll taxes is only eligible for employees that have been paid but not working. So essentially they've been furloughed with pay. You'll be able to claim that back as the employer's share of CPP and EI as well as the wage subsidy.
Okay. If employees are paid in a period that is different from those outlined by the government, how does the employer recalculate their pay?
The calculation should really be drilled down to essentially a daily payroll so that you can then fit their pay into whatever pay period you're working on. And the template that we use actually does that for us and does a fairly comprehensive analysis of that. There's an interesting another little quirk. March 15th is usually payday for a lot of semi-monthly payrolls, and March 15th is actually included in the subsidy calculation, just that one day. Mm-hmm. So if you paid semi-monthly, you pay them on the 15th, one day of that will actually be included in the calculation.
Okay. And lastly, how does the previously announced 10% wage subsidy work with the new 75% version?
So you can't get both one on top of the other, but the way they've determined it is that you will have to deduct the 10% wage subsidy from the 75% because obviously otherwise you're getting both. And the way they've written the legislation, you have to deduct it even if you haven't actually claimed it. You'll have to actually go and claim it. The process is automatically calculating your eligibility for it, and will build it into your CRA account where your payroll deductions go. So you should be calculating that and deducting it from your remittances, and then also deducting it from the CEWS.
Okay. And one other thing I just wanted to touch on, John, as it relates to business owners, they've now talked about this Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. I wondered briefly if you could just touch on it. I know it's hasn't gone live yet, I don't think, or maybe I may stand corrected.
No, it's not live. This is just an announcement by the government, and essentially it's going to be a potential 75% reduction in rent for business owners. It has to be applied for by the landlord, and the landlord is going to essentially have to agree to carry the other 25%. It's going to be fairly limited in scope since you have to show a 70% reduction in revenue. And so this is going to be very helpful for those businesses that were shut down by government closure rules, restaurants, hairstylists, barbershops, that kind of business that is just not open at all. This will be very helpful for them, but we don't know what the rules are going to exactly look like until down the road a bit.
Right. So just getting back to this Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, I know I've been reading online here a little bit, and the initial feedback this morning seems to be how complicated the application process is. Have you had any experience with it right now?
Well, for people that don't work with Revenue Canada quite a lot, it can feel daunting. A lot of small businesses don't have a My Business account set up with CRA. But they probably have an accountant who files on their behalf. So the accountant can do it. We have already filed a couple for clients. And what we found is the application process is not that complicated, but the calculations that go into the application, figuring out how much you're entitled to, first of all, figuring out whether you actually are eligible based on revenue declines, and then figuring out how much you're actually entitled to is very complicated.
And not only that, I know there's penalties for non-compliance, and it's good to know that your clients are fortunate to have you guys in their corner, kind of helping you navigate the process. And it may be a great time, I think, for business owners to really sit back and think about, who they have in their corner, because this is a stressful time for a lot of businesses.
Absolutely. The last thing you want to do is go through and survive this epidemic and get your business back on your feet, to have CRA come knocking on your door and saying, oh, by the way, you've overclaimed on your CEWS or your CEBA or anything else, and assessing penalties for doing that. So the more help you can get, the better, and we're certainly available to assist.
Sounds good, John. And what I'll do is when I put this video up, I'll put your contact info below. So thanks again, John. I really appreciate you joining me today.
Okay, thanks for
Great
having
info.
me, Mark. Anytime. Good
Thanks.
to talk to you. Take care. Bye-bye.